So we're talking about Tigers. This is something you know so well. What a run they're on right now, getting to the ALDS. Um, Talk a little bit, just if you could, for me, just a little bit about the city of Detroit and what that fan base is like, and what you think that fan base is feeling right now as they're getting to this point in the postseason.
Well, it's always been a baseball town. There's no question about that. I can remember I was in the organization in '68 when they won. I was not in the organization in '84, but then experienced managing there for 8 years, so I know what it's like. It's a blue collar town. They're hardworking people. They love their baseball. They've handed tickets down from great grandfather to grandfather, and down the chain of the chain of command, kind of, I guess you say. But yeah, it's a pure baseball town, and they're really excited. I've seen that firsthand because when we won in 2006, it was crazy. It was just tremendous.
And thinking about the success they've had, obviously your record there speaks for itself, getting to multiple World Series. But talk a little bit about this run that they're on right now. It's such a young team making it this far. They're the hottest team in baseball, arguably. Just when you have a team so young like that, just playing so well, maybe even above expectations, how much does momentum play into coming off a regular season going into the playoffs?
Well, momentum is normally as good as your next day's pitcher. And, AJ's done just a phenomenal job with that opener and using the bullpen as starting pitchers. And, that's unique to be able to do it this long. That does work sometimes, but for it to work for this long a period of time, it's just been miraculous, really. He's been unbelievable handling that. And then, of course, they got a nice anchor there every fifth day because they got Scooble, who's probably the best pitcher in the American League right now. So, it's worked out pretty well for them. It normally doesn't work as long as it has, but they're young, they're fresh, and they're energetic, and there's something to be said for that. They're young guys. They're not tired. They're not just going on emotion right now. They're in good shape. They're a young group, and they got a lot of energy.
Does this team remind you of any team that whether it's in Detroit or another town, any other team that you remember coaching in your career?
No, not really. A little bit, kind of like the Pirates in '90, but not really. This team's younger. When I went there in '6, they had a few more veteran players. They just hadn't won. They hadn't done very well, but they had a few more veteran players, obviously, than they do now, except we did bring in Verlander and Joel Zamaya, which was a big part of that team in 2006. So this team's quite a bit younger, and so it's a little bit different. But I think their youth is working to their advantage right now because I think they're really fresh.
Sure. This is going to be a team because they are one of the wild card teams going to have to play on the road a little bit more if they want to get all the way to the World Series. I know they just got through beating Houston, a team that's won so many World Series in the last recent memory. Now going to face Cleveland, divisional rival. When you think about having a chance to play a division rival in the playoffs, just how much do you think that could add to just the anticipation and the excitement that it is for the Detroit fan base for this playoff series?
Well, right now, the American League Central looks pretty good with Kansas City, Detroit, and Cleveland in there. A lot of people, they've kind of criticized the Central Division over the last few years, but the Central Division looks pretty good right now with those three teams in. So I think I think it's really exciting. You got a division opponent. I think we have a little. I'm not talking about an advantage for the series, but I think we have a little bit of an advantage from the standpoint that we've had to keep playing, and so we're fresh and we've seen live pitching much more recently than Cleveland has. Cleveland hasn't played since I don't know, maybe last Sunday. So they've been off several days, and I went through that myself, and it does make a difference because. Not so much your defense and the pitching, but for that hitting, your timing can get off pretty quick. And when you haven't seen live pitching, the speed of the pitching, particularly the speed of pitching in today's game, it can be a little tough to adjust, to get back in the sync. So from that standpoint, I think it's good that we've had to keep playing.
Yeah, and I mean that makes sense. Momentum is such a big deal, and just keeping that momentum rolling. A few more for you here, Jim. I read a stat the other day that you think about what's going on in the AL. You have three teams in the AL Central, and then you have the Yankees. And the payroll, I believe it's just about $20 million more if you combine the three teams from the Central Division compared to the Yankees. So it's really two kind of different brands of baseball in the way that they go about running their organizations. Can you just talk a little bit about how the structure of how these teams operate in terms of the payroll and just how maybe cool it is to see a team with a low payroll going as far as some teams that right now pay hundreds of millions of dollars to get some of these star players across the world?
Well, you can throw the payroll stuff out the window right now. It makes no difference. People like to talk about that. I don't look at it as much as other people do. I mean, you're in the postseason. You got to play who you got to play. It doesn't matter what your payroll is. They're all there, and nobody's gonna, other than people are gonna write about it and stuff like that. But it makes no difference when the umpire says play ball, and nobody cares about the payroll. Yeah, you're out there. You got to win games. So, obviously the Yankees have a big payroll. They have, a couple of players in Judge and Soto making a lot of money. So their payrolls are going to be higher. But what happens is when you have a young team like the Tigers, if you're going to keep them, your payroll will get high at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as simple as it is. I went through that in Pittsburgh. Our payroll in Pittsburgh my first year in 1986 was $10 million for the whole team. And when it started to get up to $34-35 million, they just couldn't handle that. They weren't going to be able to afford that. So we lost a lot of players. So, at some point, if you keep your entire team together, and I'm not talking about the Tigers, I'm talking in general. If you got a young team that's really good and continues to get good and produces, the payroll will go up.
Fair enough. I think about Detroit and Cleveland, the series here, and Toledo's kind of that in-between point. Both these teams are going to have to pass through the Toledo area to get here, so I'm sure the fan base is relatively split out in our area of the woods. I know you're a Perrysburg guy. Growing up here in Perrysburg, did you have an affiliation towards the Tigers as a kid, or were you maybe a Cleveland fan, or maybe what was that team that you grew up loving as a kid here in Perrysburg?
Well, when I grew up, I was a Cleveland Indian fan. My brothers were Tiger fans, so it was kind of unique. And then, of course, I ended up signing with the Tigers and being in that organization for 30-some years now. So, obviously, I'm a Tiger fan. There's no question about that, and I'm still working for them. So, from that perspective, I'm all Tigers. But when I was a little kid, to be honest with you, I was a Cleveland Indian fan.
That's cool. I got to tell you, honestly, here, I'm from the Cleveland area, so I'm a Cleveland fan myself. But it's so cool to see up here in Detroit what's gone on, especially the past few years, seeing how Detroit's had some struggles, to see them have some great success this year. It's been a lot of fun. Lastly here, Jim, I don't want to keep too much of your time. When you were managing the Mud Hens, I know you're still part of the Tigers. Or excuse me, when you were managing the Tigers, I know you're still with them, but the Mud Hens, the impact that the Mud Hens organization maybe played in preparing some of these guys that are eventually here in Detroit. I know it's a young roster right now. Just can you talk a little bit about maybe back when you were managing or what you see now, just the impact of what the Mud Hens have played for the Tigers in their run so far?
Well, they're a big part of the organization. There's no question about that. And you look at a lot of those pitchers that are going up there they're using some of those pitchers now. Herder and some of those guys that have been with the Mud Hens, and they're just doing a terrific job. So, Toledo's a big part of it. The other thing is that it's a great relationship between the Tigers and Toledo because from a major league manager standpoint, it's ideal because you can get a player there within an hour if you need to get a player there. I mean, you're never, as long as you're at home when you're playing, and you have a little issue before the game or something, at 3:00 in the afternoon, you can get if the Mud Hens are home, you can get a player there within an hour. I mean, that's pretty convenient for you. So that's very helpful, and the Mud Hens always run a good organization, and it's a nice marriage between the Mud Hens and the Tigers. There's no question about that.
All right, Jim. Lastly, for you here, how do you think this series goes here in the ALDS? What's the forecast from your view for the Tigers the rest of the way here in the postseason?
You know what I learned a long time ago? Don't be predicting because nobody ever knows what's going to happen. I've been involved myself, and if you look at the Mets and the Brewers last night, the Brewers had one of the best closers in baseball. on the mound to shut it out, and the Mets ambushed them in the ninth inning with 3 runs, or whatever it was, 4 runs. I don't know. I have no idea. I just know that the Tigers are playing as good as anybody right now. I think they're as good as anybody in the major leagues right now. And, I think they got as good a chance as anybody. So, I feel good about the series, but they're going to be playing a division rival and the division champion. So, for me, you can just pick them. I have no idea, who has the edge. I do think the Tigers, like I say, they got a lot going for them right now. And Cleveland's had to sit around and wait for 4 or 5 days. So, if they were looking for one advantage, that might be it for the Tigers.